Zoey was staring blankly at the computer. It was as if nothing had happened between them. The warmth of their night together was like a pleasant dream that Zoey didn't want to wake up from. But the cold reality was that with each day that passed with no word from Blaine, it seemed more and more likely Zoey wouldn't hear from him again. Zoey had left work early to meet a client at a cafe downtown. After she finished her meeting, Zoey walked outside and discovered it was starting to drizzle. Deciding to try to ride out the worst of it, Zoey ducked under the awning of the drugstore on the corner. Shaking out her purse and trying to wipe the rain off her face with her hand, Zoey looked up, and that's when she saw him. Blaine. He was across the street. Zoey was delighted and was ready to cross the street and greet him, but unexpectedly, Blaine suddenly stopped when a beautiful woman rushed under his umbrella and hugged him tightly. And Blaine didn't push away the woman in his embrace. Instead, he reached out and hugged her back. Zoey was stunned. Zoey could hear the sound of her heart splitting in two as she watched them. Zoey felt as if something heavy was wrapping around her chest. She took a deep breath and felt a sharp pain in her heart. It was well after midnight when Zoey left Max's new hospital and was about to go home, when her phone vibrated in her purse and a text message popped up. It was a message from Blaine. Zoey was surprised. The information was simple and concise. Come to the hospital in 10 minutes. Zoey was speechless. How did he know she was only 10 minutes away? Although Blaine had said that Zoey, as his mistress, had to do as he wished, she disagreed. Not to mention that after what she had witnessed earlier, she was not in the mood to resume their affair. Zoey didn't want to see Blaine's face, let alone sleep with him. Zoey's phone vibrated with another text. Blaine again. It's fine if you don't come, but you will default on our agreement and your credit card will be suspended. Zoey felt a headache starting. Was Blaine torturing her on purpose? She didn't know what was on his mind. She felt she had no choice, so Zoey turned the car around and headed to St. Mary's Hospital. As she drove, she reminded herself that this was for Max. There was nothing else between her and Blaine. There couldn't be. He has nothing to do with you. Standing outside their office's glass door, she saw him chatting happily with David and Jose. Then, as if he sensed Zoey's presence outside the door, Blaine suddenly turned around and his gaze fell on Zoey's expressionless face. Zoey hated this. She felt he was treating her like a pet dog, expecting her to come when he called. She slightly straightened her body and waited for him to get close. Zoey curled her lips and said with an expressionless face, "You owe me money for the gas to get here." Blaine narrowed his eyes, crossed his arms over his chest, and clucked his tongue in disbelief. "Zoey, you are really something else." "Yes, I'm just low class and common, aren't I? How can someone like me compare to the high society ladies, right?" Zoey blurted out, not even thinking about what she was saying and instantly wanting to take her words back. Damn it, Zoey thought. Now she sounded jealous. Zoey waved her hands in front of her. "Blaine, never mind. I don't need you to escort me out. Forget the gas money. This one's on me." Blaine dragged the still reluctant Zoey out of the hospital and into the parking lot. They walked silently until they reached Zoey's car, and she unlocked the door. "You saw me this afternoon?" Blaine casually asked Zoey. Zoey was stunned for a second. "I'm not blind and she's not transparent," she said indifferently. Blaine's fingers tapped rhythmically on the top of Zoey's car door. He tilted his head to the side and asked Zoey with a smile, "Jealous?" "Jealous? Why would I be jealous?" Zoey smirked, concealing the unhappiness in her heart. "Wasn't mistress rule number 1 that it's none of my business who else you sleep with?" As soon as Zoey finished speaking, Blaine's smile vanished and his face darkened. He was angry. For a moment, Blaine looked like he was about to say something to Zoey, but then he just slapped the roof of her car, turned, and walked away. When Zoey returned home, she was surprised to find that Ziva was still awake. As the news went to commercial break, Zoey asked, "Ziva, why are you still up? It's so late." Ziva looked bitterly at Zoey. "Sis, Dr. Dexter will be heading to the front lines of Mexico City to provide medical support tomorrow." "What?" Zoey was stunned. She looked at her sister in astonishment, thinking she had misheard. Ziva pointed at the news on the television, her face filled with unsympathetic tears. "It's this crappy place. St. Mary's Hospital has a sister hospital in Mexico City, and they've requested urgent assistance. Because of the falling debris, many of the injured have head injuries. The hospital there particularly requested brain surgeons and others familiar with various head traumas, and Dr. Dexter volunteered. He leaves at 6 a.m. tomorrow." Zoey was surprised and couldn't help but ask, "What time is his plane?" 6 o'clock, Ziva answered without thinking. Zoey tried to sleep that night, but she couldn't. After she heard Ziva leave for the airport, she lay there for a few minutes before throwing off her covers. Zoey couldn't help herself. She quickly got dressed and followed Ziva to the airport. From her hiding place, Zoey nervously watched where Blaine stood with a circle of friends. He was about to board the plane and everyone was saying their final goodbyes. She watched as Sophia threw herself into Blaine's arms and refused to come out despite everyone's eyes on her. Blaine scanned the terminal again. Seeing the other passengers boarding the plane, he swung his backpack over his shoulder and headed to the gate's security checkpoint. When Zoey saw Blaine's tall, straight figure disappear into the crowd of passengers, she couldn't stop the heavy disappointment she felt. He was leaving, and she hadn't even had the chance to say goodbye. After hearing the call for final boarding, Zoey prepared to leave. Suddenly, she felt a tight grip on her waist as Blaine pulled her into his embrace again. Blaine bent his head, his face close to hers, and ordered her in a low voice, "Kiss me, Zoey."
Hi, Zoey here. If you are wondering what happens next, then download the Pocket FM app and listen to the exciting episodes of Rekindled Heartache now.